Welcome to the Deep Dive. We explore fascinating subjects to give you clear insights, things you can actually use.
And today, we're getting into good energy.
Yeah, and we're talking about something much deeper than just, grabbing a coffee to feel awake.
Right. Goes right down to the cellular level. How our modern world, well, how it affects our basic health, our vitality.
Exactly. It's this idea that real energy, the kind that lasts, it starts in our cells.
And our bodies are constantly interacting with the environment, aren't they?
Yeah.
And so much of modern life just throws challenges at that balance.
It really does. And our guide for this deep dive is Dr. Casey Means. She was an ENT resident at Stanford, but made this huge career shift.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. She moved away from traditional surgery to really focus on metabolic health. And all of that led to her book, Good Energy, which became a New York Times bestseller.
Her journey itself says a lot, doesn't it? Stepping away from that conventional path.
It really highlights her strong conviction that maybe the current way we approach healthcare isn't getting to the root causes of, all these widespread health problems.
So our mission today is to unpack the core ideas from Good Energy using her book, but also insights from various interviews she's given.
We want to give you knowledge that's practical, not just like abstract theory, so you can actually take some steps towards better health yourself.
Yeah, this whole deep dive is about showing how interconnected everything is, our health, our surroundings.
Moving beyond just looking at isolated symptoms, to see the bigger picture, the environmental context that's shaping how our cells work, and ultimately how energetic we feel.
Okay, so let's explore that. A key theme for Dr. Means is this growing gap, this disconnect between how we live now and the natural world, and how that fuels chronic disease.
Right. That's central to her thinking. That chronic disease isn't just like random bad luck. It's often a result of being isolated, disconnected from this environment we evolved in. Humans used to be in constant, direct contact with nature.
She really hammers home the need to get back to basics. Clean water, real food like minimally processed, nutrient-dense stuff.
Fresh air, just being outside more.
It almost sounds too simple, doesn't it?
It might seem that way on the surface. But if you think bigger picture, it's about resyncing with fundamental biological rhythms. Dr. Means strongly argues against this idea that we could just hack our way to health with, say, ultra-processed foods or quick fixes.
Right.
She uses this analogy like, you can't just patch a leak if the whole house foundation is unstable. The overall environment for our bodies needs to be healthy.
So you can't outsmart these natural processes. You have to work with them.
Exactly. And a huge piece of this puzzle, according to Dr. Means, is the health of our mitochondria.
Okay, mitochondria. Let's get into that.
This is where it gets really interesting. She basically describes mitochondria as these tiny power plants inside our cells.
Right.
They take the energy from the food we eat. She calls it cosmic energy, which I think is a great term.
Yeah, cosmic energy. I like that. It emphasizes that connection.
Yeah. And they convert it into the human energy that powers, well, everything we do.
So how does this tie into things like insulin resistance? We hear about that all the time.
Well, Dr. Means offers a really valuable perspective here. She doesn't just see insulin resistance as a blood sugar problem. She sees it more as a blockage,
A blockage.
Yeah, a blockage to that fundamental energy flow right at the cellular level. If the mitochondria are overwhelmed, maybe because of our diet or lifestyle, the cell might actually put up a barrier. It resists letting more glucose in because it just can't process it efficiently.
That's a different way to look at it. So eating in a metabolically healthy way isn't just about keeping blood sugar stable.
No, it's actually about increasing the capacity of our mitochondria, helping them do their job better.
Okay.
When we give our bodies the right fuel, we're essentially supercharging those mitochondria and improving that whole energy flow. She uses analogies like, think about blocked lymphatic flow or even environmental dams stopping a river. It shows how crucial smooth, unimpeded flow is for health.
Like a river system analogy for the body. Nutrients are the water, mitochondria, the power plants.
Exactly. And energetic flow is just that smooth movement, getting resources where they need to go to make energy.
Yeah.
Anything damming that dirts us hurts your vitality.
It keeps circling back to flow and connection, doesn't it? Now, her decision to leave traditional medicine wasn't just about the biology, right? It was also her experience within the system.
Yeah, and this brings up some big questions about the incentives baked into our healthcare model. Dr. Means got really concerned about a system that often seems to prioritize high patient volume, churning through appointments.
And those RVUs.
Right, relative value units. The way doctors get paid often incentivizes doing procedures over, say, spending time on prevention.
And this wasn't just an abstract concern for her. She had a really personal, devastating experience.
Absolutely. Her mother's sudden death from pancreatic cancer, which is often linked to metabolic problems, was a huge turning point.
Even though she was getting care at top places.
Exactly. Despite that care, the disease progressed quickly. It really highlighted a system focused more on managing symptoms than digging for root causes.
Yeah.
And hearing top doctors basically call it bad luck. That was a real wake-up call for her.
Wow. It really makes you question the underlying drivers. Dr. Means points out something pretty uncomfortable but important for all of us as patients to grasp.
It is uncomfortable, but based on her observations, it seems true. Various parts of the healthcare system, medical schools, pharma companies, hospitals, insurers, often their financial interests align more with ongoing sickness than with promoting genuine wellness.
It's a massive industry, and the current structure often profits from managing disease long term.
Yeah, and she brings up that shocking statistic out the city. 77% of young adults aren't fit enough for military service because of health issues.
That really starkly shows the consequences.
It does. And she also talks about this busyness industrial complex, this constant pressure in society to be busy, productive.
Right.
It distracts us. It pulls focus away from preventative care, from actually asking why we might be feeling unwell.
It's like we're all stuck on this hamster wheel, no time to stop and think, which leads to what she calls the collective feel like crap syndrome.
That's such a powerful phrase. It's this idea that we've just normalized feeling. Not great. She talks about her own teenage years, acne, anxiety, painful periods, things she just thought were normal parts of being a teenager.
But looking back,
She sees them as signs of underlying metabolic issues. We've almost lowered the bar for what healthy feels like because so many people feel suboptimal.
that's a really concerning thought, that we've lost touch with true vitality. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about that common advice. Everything in moderation. Dr. Means really challenges that.
Oh, she has a very strong stance on this, especially when it comes to foods that we know actually harm our cells. Her point is, well, eating small amounts of toxic stuff doesn't make it not toxic.
Right. She uses that analogy. Think of your 40 trillion cells, like 40 trillion children you need to nourish.
Exactly. Would you give your kids small doses of poison? Her argument is, why waste your body's precious energy constantly detoxing stuff that harms it?
Instead, focus on giving cells what they actually need to thrive.
Right. Prioritize inputs that build health, rather than constantly doing damage control.
So it's less about tiny indulgences and more about a fundamental shift to foods that genuinely feed us at that cellular level, which ties into taking more control, becoming more aware of their own bodies.
Yes, this is a really empowering part of her message. Learning to listen to your body's signals, symptoms, intuition, just how you feel, and then combining that with objective data from your own biomarkers.
And the tools for that are becoming way more accessible now, aren't they?
Absolutely. She highlights things like continuous glucose monitors, CGMs, and direct-to-consumer lab tests. Companies like Levels, Function Health, Insight Tracker, Guva Diagnostic, they're making it easier for people to get and understand their own health data.
So instead of just relying on that yearly checkup, you can get this, continuous feedback loop.
Yeah.
How does that help navigate all the confusing diet advice out there?
That's the beauty of it. You can track your own biomarkers, try different things, different foods, different habits, and see your specific results in real time.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to guess based on generic advice. You can personalize your approach based on how your body responds. Dr. Means basically says, if your key metabolic markers look good and you feel good, you can trust that what you're doing is working for you, even if it doesn't fit neatly into some popular diet box.
That is empowering, trusting your own data and your own feeling. So what are some of these key metabolic biomarkers she focuses on?
She lists a few crucial ones: fasting glucose, triglycerides, HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, and importantly, fasting insulin.
Fasting insulin. She mentions doctors might push back on ordering that.
Yeah, sometimes. But her book actually gives you scripts, like ways to ask for it. Fasting insulin shows how hard your pancreas is working behind the scenes. High levels can show up way before blood sugar goes fully out of whack. So these markers together give you a really good snapshot.
Got it. And if those markers aren't looking great, what's the next step, according to her?
She talks about the 7 pillars that shape our metabolic health. These are food, sleep, movement, emotional health, toxins, light, and temperature.
Okay, the 7 pillars.
Think of them as the big levers, the main inputs affecting your cellular energy. Her advice is to take an honest look at each one in your own life. Where are the weak spots? Where can you improve? and then start making changes there.
And while they're all important,
She definitely highlights food as being particularly critical and often, a major problem area for a lot of people.
food again, it always comes back to what we eat, doesn't it? And speaking of food's immediate impact, let's dive a bit deeper into those CGMs, the continuous glucose monitors.
Right. CGMs give you so much more than a finger prick test. It's not just one number. It's a continuous movie of your blood sugar day and night.
So you can see the fluctuations?
Exactly. You can track things like glycemic variability, basically, how spiky your blood sugar is, and the overall area under the curve, which shows your total glucose exposure over time.
And she mentioned the dawn effect. What's
Uh,
that about?
Yeah, the dawn effect. That's that natural rise in blood sugar some people see when they wake up, even before eating. It's partly hormonal, your body gearing up for the day.
Okay.
A little rise is normal, but a really big sharp spike first thing in the morning, that can actually be an early sign of insulin resistance. Your cells aren't responding quite right. So a CGM can flag that.
It's amazing the detail you can get. She tells stories about people being surprised by how certain foods, even healthy ones, affect their glucose, right?
Totally. What works for one person might send another person's blood sugar soaring. The CGM gives you that personal, immediate feedback. And she also mentions the tech is evolving. Monitors for ketones, lactate, even alcohol are coming.
Like Abbott's Lingo.
Right, and over-the-counter CGMs like Dexcom Skilo are becoming available too, so we'll get an even clearer picture of our metabolic state soon.
This push towards more data really fits with her theme of individual understanding. Okay, back to food. Why the intense focus on real, unprocessed food?
Well, fundamentally, she says, you are what you eat, right?
Yeah,
Our bodies are literally built for the molecules in our food.
makes sense.
So if you're constantly eating ultra-processed stuff, things often low in nutrients, high in weird additives, it can directly mess with your mitochondria, create toxic byproducts, even lead to fat building up inside your cells where it shouldn't be.
And those processed foods wreak havoc on blood sugar, too.
Oh, absolutely. Big spikes, then big crashes, which then makes you crave more junky carbs and you get stuck in this awful cycle.
So what are some of her life hacks for stable glucose?
She offers some practical tips, like try savory breakfast instead of sugary ones. Think protein, healthy fats. Take a short walk after you eat. Maybe try a little apple cider vinegar. And if you're having something sweet, always pair it with protein, fat, and fiber to slow down the sugar absorption.
It sounds like the idea is that our cells crave real nutrients, and real food actually satisfies those deep cravings, breaking the addiction cycle of processed stuff.
Exactly right. She even cites a study where people given unlimited ultra-processed food ate way more calories and felt hungrier than people given unlimited whole, unprocessed food. It shows how those engineered foods mess with our natural hunger and fullness signals.
Okay, so if we focus on real food, what are the key building blocks she highlights for happy mitochondria?
She points to 5 main things: fiber, healthy protein, probiotic sources, omega-3 fats, and micronutrient antioxidant-rich foods.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. For fiber, chia seeds, flax, berries, beans, lentils. Protein, good quality meat, fish, eggs, legumes, nuts. Probiotics, think fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, maybe some low-sugar kombucha or yogurt.
Yeah.
Omega-3s, fatty fish like sardines, salmon, also chia, flax, walnuts. And for micronutrients and antioxidants.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, load up on colorful fruits and veggies, herbs, spices, those polyphenols.
Polyphenols, those are beneficial plant compounds.
Yeah, with antioxidant effects.
Mm.
Basically, eat the rainbow. The idea is to keep these kinds of foods stocked in your kitchen so it's easy to build meals around them.
And the really hopeful message here is that if your metabolic health isn't great, it's not a life sentence. It can be reversed.
Definitely. She really emphasizes that you can see significant improvements in those key markers.
Mm-hmm.
Triglycerides, HDL, fasting glucose, often within just a few months if you're focused in making the right changes.
That's where tracking your progress with those direct-to-consumer labs can be really motivating.
Exactly. See, the numbers move in the right direction.
Okay, that's super encouraging. Now, beyond the purely physical diet, Exercise Dr. Means also talks about the mind-body connection, specifically how stress and our emotional state impact our cells.
Right, this brings in the cell danger response. It's the idea that our cells, especially the mitochondria, are constantly scanning the environment, not just for resources, but also for threats.
And these threats aren't just physical dangers, like psychological stress counts too.
Yes, absolutely. Things like constant exposure to scary news, financial worries, relationship stress. Our bodies perceive these as threats too. It happens through hormones, neurotransmitters, it affects our biology.
So watching frightening news can actually put our cells into a defensive mode.
That's the idea. When cells sense danger, real or perceived, they shift resources. They prioritize defense and survival over growth, repair, and thriving. And Dr. Means suggests that in our modern world, with phones buzzing constantly, we might be living in an unnaturally high state of chronic perceived threat.
And that constant low-level alarm state hinders the mitochondria, even if we're eating well.
It can, yeah. That's a key takeaway. Creating a sense of safety in the body is crucial for optimal mitochondrial function. This might mean things like mindfulness, meditation, spending time in nature, or consciously limiting exposure to stressful inputs.
Speaking of nature, she really emphasizes reconnecting with the natural world, doesn't she?
Oh, massively. She sees it as fundamental. We need to sync up with nature's cycles, especially circadian rhythms, getting natural light exposure. She quotes Rick Rubin. Back to nature, the only truth.
Back to nature, the only truth. What does that mean to her?
It reflects that powerful, almost primal sense of connection and rightness we feel when we're in nature. She contrasts that with modern society, which can sometimes feel chaotic, fear-driven, making us feel like we've lost control. Nature offers a more basic, grounding, and ultimately empowering perspective.
And being outdoors has concrete benefits too, right? Like reducing anxiety.
Yeah, reducing anxiety, even helping with things like myopia, nearsightedness in kids. It just reminds our bodies of the fundamental rhythms we're meant to live by.
Okay, so pulling all these threads together, Dr. Means offers some pretty clear, actionable guidelines for living a good energy lifestyle based on her book and interviews.
Yeah, summarizing some of the key takeaways. Aim for 7-8 hours of good sleep. Maybe use a tracker to see how you're really doing. Get moving 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day. Lots of low-level activity.
Monitor things like heart rate variability, HRV, and resting heart rate if you have a wearable.
Balance your omega-3 and omega-6 fats. Load up on fiber, probiotics, those polyphenol-rich foods for your gut. Drink clean water. Maybe filter your tap water.
And the big one, really minimize or cut out processed and ultra-processed foods, refined sugars and grains, and those industrial seed oils.
Right. Choose organic when you can. Be aware of pesticides. Get enough key micronutrients, magnesium, zinc, selenium, B vitamins, CoQ10. Eat enough protein, maybe aiming for at least 30 grams per meal.
Consider time-restricted eating if it works for you. Build in regular movement, including strength training. Maybe experiment with temperature stress, cold showers, saunas.
Reduce exposure to toxins, filter water, avoid plastics, choose cleaner personal care products, and really cultivate emotional well-being, mindfulness, gratitude, connection.
Wow, it's a comprehensive list, but it feels like a roadmap. It really covers all those pillars.
It really drives home that it's a holistic approach, supporting health from all angles. And finally, her own story brings up the role of doctors and the need for changes in the healthcare system itself.
Yeah, her move from surgery to metabolic education really came from seeing the system's limitations firsthand. She talks about needing to change how doctors are incentivized.
She's a proponent of moving towards true value-based care, rewarding doctors for actually keeping people healthy, not just for doing more procedures or prescribing more drugs.
She mentioned that sometimes quality metrics are just tied to whether someone is consistently taking medication, which isn't the same as being truly well.
Exactly. So ultimately, she argues that we as individuals need to become educated, become advocates for our own health. Sometimes that means questioning the status quo, asking for the right tests, seeking second opinions.
Dr. Means believes clinical guidelines themselves need to evolve to catch up with the science on metabolic health. Her whole journey is about seeking knowledge, trusting your body, and taking ownership.
It really is.
Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive into good energy. It's so clear that real health, real energy, it's not just about avoiding disease. It's about actively understanding and supporting ourselves, especially in a world that often works against them.
It really makes you think about how everything is connected, what you eat, how you move, your stress levels, the environment, even the healthcare system itself. It all impacts you down to the cellular level.
So we really encourage you listening to maybe reflect on those 7 pillars in your own life. Where could you make a small shift? Even 1 or 2 changes based on what we discussed could start making a difference.
Yeah, every little step counts towards building better cellular health, better energy, better vitality.
Which leads us to our final thought for you. What's one small but significant change you could make starting today? Maybe it's swapping a processed snack for whole fruit. Maybe it's prioritizing sleep tonight. Maybe just taking a 10-minute walk outside. What's your first step towards better energy at that fundamental cellular level?
And if you want to go deeper on all of this, definitely check out Dr. Casey Means' book, Good Energy, and look up her work online. It's a fantastic resource for understanding your body and really reclaiming your health.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.